This is my heater. I dare you to hit it.
He'll be sorry.
Want the heater? I'll give it to you.
Basketball, maybe they don't hit it.
A swing and a drive to deep right.
Clear the deck. Cannonball coming.
Left field. It is out of here.
What is up? What is good? Baseball Unstitched. We are back. Happy draft day, or that is the day we are recording. Loved watching the first round today. Gosh, what a Sunday. Men's League Baseball and then the first round of the MLB draft. Flax, can't ask for much more. How was the weekend?
Yeah, I don't know that it gets any better. Weekend was great. Pretty relaxing weekend, to be honest with you, leading up to the draft. At least for us, it was, because neither of us were getting drafted. So not a lot of anxiety. Played baseball today. It was a good day. We won, 22-4. I started on the mound. You had 2 doubles, a lot of RBIs. Pretty good day. Yeah, nothing much more than that.
No, I totally agree. Draft day is one of my favorite days of the year, every single year. So gotta love it, my friend. And we're going to dive a little bit into that, guys. We're going to be hitting on, hopefully, the top 15 picks here. A little bit of a recap. Some shockers, a lot of guys that we expected to go. Our big board held up pretty well today. We'll talk a little bit more about that as well. But first and foremost, before that, we will end up talking a little bit about the Orioles trade of Bryan Baker last week as they received comp round pick number 37. And this pick, well, the Orioles found out who they actually got for Bryan Baker today, and it's just an interesting situation we'd love to talk you guys through. Before we get all that going, though, opening thoughts. Flax, I'll go first. I'll fall on this sword for you and all the Orioles fans. Kyle Stowers came home to Baltimore and said, "Hi, how you doing? Did you miss me?" 3 home runs today. It was a heck of a show from him. I don't expect you to have much to say about it, but wow, he looked good.
Yeah, 5 for 5, 6 RBIs, 3 home runs. I don't know that a day gets much better than that. He was already 5 for 8 on base. I think had a couple of hits in there coming into today's game. Yeah, I mean, listen, Trevor Rogers also threw well during this series. So I don't feel bad about the trade. I think we've talked about it before. I don't know Kyle Stowers was necessarily getting the opportunity that he necessarily needed. They talked about it today. It was very fascinating. Kyle Stowers played horrible this spring training, and even he would tell you that. And going into spring training, going into the spring season, he didn't even have lodging or anything ready to go because he didn't know if he was going to make the team. He was playing so poorly. And they were like, "No, you're an outfielder on this team. We traded for you. You're going to be on the team. You're going to have a fine spring." And then he ended up hitting a walk-off base hit down the line in game 1, and it's been history from there. So, no, I mean, I'm happy for him. I want him to play well, and I'd prefer he didn't hit his 3 home runs in a single game against the Orioles.
Yeah,
sue me.
The proverbial revenge game on both sides. Unfortunately, Rogers did not end up getting the final result in his side of the game. Flax, where are we starting with you this week?
Nicholas J. Kurtz out of the Sacramento A's, Athletics, whatever we want to call them. His power is insane. He right now is a true 3 results guy: home run, strikeout, walk. He's in the 75th percentile in walks at almost 11%. He is in the first percentile. Not a good thing. In strikeouts at about 33% of the time. He's got 17 bombs in 235 plate appearances, 558 slug, 891 OPS. It's fun to watch when he's going well. It's brutal when he's just swinging through pitches. I said to you, I don't know that as a baseball player, playing personally, I'd lose my mind striking out that much. I guess at some point you get a little desensitized to it, right? I have no idea.
1 every 3 at bats, it's just the way he attacks an at bat. I mean, listen, everybody plays a little bit different. I can totally agree that me or you with our style of play would totally go crazy with that. But hey, if we hit 17 balls over the fence, slugged for a 558 slug on a regular basis and had an almost 900 OPS, I don't know how much we'd care about the strikeouts at that point.
This is true.
Nah. Man, all right, well, moving right along here then, let's dive into this Orioles trade of Bryan Baker last week. So the move is relatively simple. It's a 1-for-1. It was Bryan Baker, who was a right-handed reliever for the Baltimore Orioles, moving to the Tampa Bay Rays in exchange for a comp round pick number 37, which today was used by the Baltimore Orioles to pick Slater De Brun, who is a prep outfielder. This was such an interesting thing to happen, and Elias even came out and said it was the Rays who really pushed for this trade and came after Baker heavily. And it just ended up fitting well within the Orioles' plans. It seems as if they knew they were going to have somebody in that range of 37 that they liked available. Flax, kind of what are your thoughts overall on this trade, how it ended up working out for both sides?
Well, it was weird when it first happened. I was like, what? I was like, what's going on? Because we didn't know what the Orioles got in return for Baker. And then found out it was a pick. And I thought, well, that's weird. This guy with 2.5 years of control in the division, and you're getting a draft pick. And then I started to think a little bit more about the fact that the Orioles now have 4 first-round draft picks. Great. And then I started to look into Bryan Baker a little bit, and I realized there's 2.5 years of control with 0 options. It's what I like to call in baseball the golden handcuffs. Because if the guy is great, then great. You have 2.5 years of a guy that you don't have to pay nearly as much as he's worth, and he's a good pitcher for you. But on the flip side, with no options, if he pitches poorly, you have to hold on to him for a little bit longer, because the likelihood is if you DFA him, the potential upside will mean that somebody else is going to go grab him off waivers and you lose him for nothing. Or potentially you trade him with no cards left in your hand, so you don't get nearly as much. So the more I looked at it and the more I start to better feel about it, Mike Elias has had a very good history drafting. I like what he's done in comp rounds in the past, Gunnar Henderson. And so I started to almost question the Rays and what their choice was, knowing the kind of pitching factory that they are, a lot of the arms that exist within their organization. For this to be the direction they chose as far as the guys that are available for back-end bullpen help, and this being what they were willing to give, was surprising, especially when you know that a team in your division already has 6 other picks on day 1 of the draft between the first 3 rounds and the comp rounds. So, I mean, Brian, I think you differed in opinion on this. I just think it was, I don't know. I don't really know what the Rays were thinking when I really, you know, and it's easier to say that after his first outing with the Rays was not good. But I watched Bryan Baker for 2 years be what he was in his first outing for the Rays. Like, I know that's in there.
Sure. Listen, I totally understand it. I think the way that I end up looking at this, though, is the Tampa Bay Rays felt like they needed a high-leverage arm. They felt like they're in a competitive window. 2.5 years of control, regardless of the options, is team control for that group. And they also believe in what they do from an overall pitching aspect, as we consider them one of the pitching factories of the MLB. For me, I look at it as the Rays are in this window, and comp round pick 37 truly didn't have a specific player that they felt like made sense, or they felt like was going to be available that made sense for them. So moving it for Baker is no harm, no foul to them. At the end of the day, they picked Baker with comp round pick 37 tonight. And I think they're totally fine with that because they're in a competitive window. The Orioles took Slater De Brun tonight, who is a very talented, toolsy, young athletic outfielder. Reminds a lot of people of Slade Caldwell last year because he's a little bit smaller of frame, hits from the left side, and could be a legit center fielder. However, that young 18-year-old potential stud project doesn't do anything for the Rays over the next 2.5 years. I think that's what the Rays did here, is they said, we'll take Bryan Baker over a project because it's time to win. I, on the flip side, still love the move for the Orioles because Elias and group have truly proven that when they have the ability to pick somewhere in the upper echelon levels of the draft, they don't miss a ton. But it's not just about not missing a ton. It's about knowing when to take a project-type player. And what the Orioles did tonight was excellent. They took 3 guys early in the draft, in Ike Irish, Caden Bodine, and Wahiva Aloy, who aren't projects. They're very well-known college commodities that the Orioles know they can work with. And now, with Comp Round 37, you're allowed to take that guy who could be the flash in the pan that you've been looking for at a much lower level of risk. So I honestly really like this for both sides.
Yeah, also, if you look at who the Rays ended up taking tonight, which they had 5 picks of their own. They already had another comp round pick. They had a supplemental pick after the second round, and then they had their first, second, and third round picks. They took a lot of high schoolers. Other than Brendan Summerhill, who I think they were just shocked fell as far as he did to them in that first comp round, they took a lot of young high schoolers. They took shortstops. They took guys that are going to be projects. They didn't take pitchers either, right? So the thought very much here is from their side of things, I agree with you. We're going to find pitchers elsewhere that already have the intangible things we like to look for in this league, and we're going to leverage that to build our bullpen, whether it's for now or the next couple of years. But it's fascinating to me when you really dig into this trade and how quickly it happened. And I want to flip more to the side of like how these GMs interact, because Mike Elias came out and was like, yeah, they, just kind of out of nowhere came to me and said like, hey, would you want this pick for that guy? And I think they held some cards there by basically being able to move something quick and putting something in front of Elias that they know he likes, which is draft capital.
I 100% agree. And it is truly about knowing the person next to you, right?
Yep.
These are 2 AL East GMs, right? You're supposed to keep your enemies closer, right? It's the whole thing. And that's kind of what this is, right? When you have an interdivision trade that has some level of ramification, as this one will, I think that there is a subset or a level of leverage that was had here because you understand the needs and wants of somebody else. So at the end of the day, I think Elias got everything that he could have asked for out of this, especially with the fact that De Brun ended up falling to the Orioles, and I have a feeling that Tampa Bay is more than happy with Baker, regardless of one poor outing. So will be really interesting to see how this continues, but very rare, in my opinion, that we have a pick that is used a week later traded. So this was really fun to see. It was super interesting to see it all play out within a week. From here on out, we're going to pay attention to see what happens through both of these guys' careers, and we'll come back to this trade in a couple years, and it'll probably be entertaining for everybody one way or the other.
Okay, on to topic number 2. We're going to recap day 1 of the draft, the top 15 picks. We are starting with one young Eli Willits, shortstop out of Fort Cobb Broxton, Oklahoma, going to the Washington Nationals. Ryan, your Washington Nationals made a very, very unique decision with the number 1 overall pick. I think a lot of people were surprised by this. We talked about how this was a very real possibility. Talk to us a little bit about that first overall pick, what went down, and what it ended up netting them. And then we'll talk a little bit more about who he is and what we think about it.
It was a very interesting position for the Nationals. Obviously, they let go of Mike Rizzo the week before. It seems like there was a lot of directional changes that happened over the last week and a half for the front office through many different reports. The thought process was here that it was probably going to be Holiday or Anderson at the top pick for the Nationals. However, Willits, highly talented shortstop, has MLB pedigree in his family, switch hitter, excellent range, one of the better defenders in the draft. So the Nats obviously felt like there was high upside and a good ceiling here, that they feel like they can get Eli Willits too. I think the only thing that stresses me out about this pick is not the player himself, because I do think he's a guy who I can understand why you take him at 1.
Yeah, for sure.
However, it just seems as if, right, Flax, that the Nats were looking to save money here, and I just really struggle with a team saving money at 1, right?
Yeah,
you know as well as I do, how often do teams get 1?
It's the principle of it, right? Like, you literally won the lottery. And I think the hard part here is that there was not a consensus 1-1 like there was with Harper and there was with Strasburg, and that's tough, right? Like, as an organization, you've now set a standard for yourself of what you expect your 1-1 to be. And I think doing this, as I think more about it, is like hey, we recognize there wasn't a consensus number 1, so we're going to get creative with winning the lottery and see what we can turn it into. And I still don't know that I feel in the camp of good idea, but I applaud the effort to try something when it didn't feel like something was smacking you in the face that you had to do.
And I can see both sides of this, right? They went Ethan Petrie with the 49th overall pick. They're going to save a little bit of money on that pick too, in my personal opinion. And then in the third round, they went with Landon Harmon, which was a very high upside right-handed pitcher. He was actually ranked 48th by MLB.com. He touches 99 with the fastball and already grades out at a 65 four-seam fastball. That's where the Nats are going to put some of this quote-unquote savings that they got from Willits. And it'll be interesting to see how tomorrow goes, or the second day of the draft, simply because I think there's got to be at least one more solid corresponding move if we're not going to spend this entire approximately $11.08 million on Willits. So it'll be interesting to see where the Nats go from here. Overall, the player, again, rangy, great tools, switch hitter. Seems like a guy with a great work ethic from an overall standpoint from everything I've seen. I'm happy to welcome into the organization, and it's going to be really fun to see what happens.
I couldn't agree more. Let's move on. Number 2, Tyler Bremner, coming out of UC Santa Barbara. This one shocked a lot of people. Shocked us a little bit less. We had him at number 10 on our big board because we just couldn't leave him out of the top 10. Too good of a right-handed arm. Runs the ball up to 98. Arguably the best changeup in the draft, graded by some at as high as 70. He's a very tall righty who throws downhill, gets a lot of swing and miss on his off-speed, and gets a lot of poor swings on his fastball. There's not much more to say about the guy. I think it's more fascinating to talk about, again, a choice by the Angels that quite possibly could be a money saver. Although I'm not quite sure I've seen where they've used it, but we're only into round 3, so we might see something a little bit later. The higher likelihood is they just really liked Bremner, and it's not shocking that a California team picked a kid from UCSB because they decided they wanted to spend more time looking at him, and I think he got overlooked by some other guys at some other different levels within the college baseball scene.
I think the Angels looked at Bremner and they saw what we've seen them see with a bunch of other guys of recent, which is I can plug this guy in an Angels uniform tomorrow if I really want to. I truly think that's what it is. The guy throws a upper 90s ride-run fastball that looks similar to Brian Woo's.
Yep.
Yeah, you're going to like that immediately, right? That's something that can play at the big league level very fast. And we didn't even just see that with this pick. Their next pick, they came out and they took Chase Shores. Shores is just this year's Ben Joyce, right? Like, call it what it is in reality for what was available. So
and for those who don't know what that is, that's 101 to 103 from the right side at 6'8". Is that what he is?
6'8", 245.
Yeah, 6'8". Okay.
So
gross.
I love it, right? This is the Angels have simply decided that we are going to take the currently best baseball players available, give them opportunities very quickly in our organization to move through them, and put them in an Angels uniform almost as fast as we can. It's such a different approach. They've been doing it over the last 3 years, and they've had some level of success, right? Zach Neto has looked solid when healthy.
Christian Moore's looked very solid when healthy. Nolan Shawwell. Yeah, absolutely.
This is very interesting strategy, but the Angels did not deviate it too. They took their guy. I love Bremner. If it wasn't for some up and down performances down the stretch, he probably would have been slotted around here anyways, whether people want to hear that or not.
He had a great video. There was a great video going around tonight from when he got picked, where he was on the phone and he looked at the rest of his party that was there watching him. And he goes, "Watch this." And then he got drafted on TV, which is such a baller move.
That was pretty cool. I did see that video as well.
Oh, moving on to number 3, and who quite possibly could be the steal of the draft, or at least the steal of the first round, other than a guy we're going to talk about a little later who fell to number 7. But at number 3, Cade Anderson, who I truly think was the better lefty of the three in the draft, three main starters between him, Doyle, and Jamie Arnold. But Cade Anderson out of LSU baseball going to the Seattle Mariners, the pitching factory of Major League Baseball, gets one of the most elite college arms and a lefty at that. Which, to be honest, for the most part, kind of out of the norm for the Mariners. They're a big right-handed staff. Have been for a while. They have good left-handed. They have very good left-handed relievers. But for the most part, other than Robbie Ray, they've been a pretty right-handed shop for a while now. But Cade Anderson is, a true 4-pitch mix, really good combo that feels almost plug and play at this moment with his pitchability. It's just going to continue to get refined, retooled, and strengthened across the board in my eyes.
Yeah, another guy with great ride on his fastball. His comp for me, ceiling-wise, is Max Fried. His 4-pitch mix is solid. He's got a little bit harder of a slider, and he's got a curveball that is excellent. I'm super excited to see what happens moving forward, simply because, honestly, Mariners might have won the draft at 3 in the first round. Or I should say won the first round, maybe is a better way to put that, because Anderson wasn't supposed to be here. And we just gave arguably the best college pitcher in the draft to the best pitching factory in baseball. So, guys, sit back, relax, and enjoy, because the Mariners are going to help make this guy something elite. Barring any type of injury, barring good health, Cade Anderson is going to be a very good Mariner for a long time.
That is the expectation, at least.
Yeah.
Moving on to the storybook pick of the 2025 MLB first round draft, Ethan Holliday, son of longtime Rocky Matt Holliday, is drafted by the Colorado Rockies. And outside of that whole story, I am in love with this pick for the Rockies. First of all, the fact that Holliday fell to 4 when he could have gone 1 was a huge get for Colorado, especially since they were in the best position originally to try and get him at number 1 when the draft lottery came around last year anyways. So they ended up getting the guy they probably wanted to begin with. And not only that, he is the actual true size son of Matt Holliday.
Yeah.
6'4", 220, will most likely play one of the corner infield positions, a smooth left-handed swing. One of the knocks on him, Ryan had mentioned this, was that he struggled a little bit against the breaking ball. I think the beauty of playing at altitude is the adjustment should be a little smaller. I also just think that as he becomes a better hitter and he starts to see better stuff, it'll become a little bit, as crazy as this sounds, it will become a little bit easier. The likelihood is when the stuff gets better, your expectations of having more available to what you're trying to do as a hitter gets a little bit easier. It's less of a guessing game and more of an approach. And when you go from high school ball to pro ball, that is a massive gap. So I'm really excited about it, Ryan. I am not just curious your opinion, but do you think it was the right pick for the Rockies when it's all said and done? Or do you think this was the pick they had to make when he fell to 4?
This was an absolute can't-miss pick for the Rockies. I think going any other direction would have been the wrong answer for them. This is the first time in a long time Rockies fans have a left-handed bat that makes you dream the same way that Todd Helton and Larry Walker made you dream oh so long ago when
Carlos
it comes
Gonzalez.
to the pop. Yeah, Carlos Gonzalez, you can throw him in the mix for sure. I don't know that I would put him at the same caliber as those two, but hey, he's the last lefty that raked in some similar way over the fence. Charlie Blackmon was great, but never a 40 home run type guy.
Cargo made you dream.
Well, Cargo made you dream and other things as well. But either way, I think Ethan Holliday is the right pick for them from an overall standpoint. First thing that I did mention, like you said, 82 games a year, the breaking ball spins just a little less. It dives just a little less on hitters. I think that's going to be really helpful. His pop was going to play everywhere in the MLB. His pop will definitely play in Colorado's altitude. I think this is a guy who Colorado can truly develop. And don't forget, we're adding him now to a right-handed power threat that is raking in the Colorado system, who was drafted in the top 5 last year, and Charlie Condon. You're telling me they're going to have a lineup that's going to include both of those players in the meat of your order? That is something to dream on in Colorado. I think the Rockies did great today. They also took Max Ballou in the compensation B round at the 74th overall pick. What a steal. A lot of good today for Colorado, in my opinion.
Yeah, it was a fun draft for them, to be quite honest. Moving forward, number 5 pick in the draft went to the St. Louis Cardinals. St. Louis Cardinals made an interesting choice here as far as we were concerned, and they took Liam Doyle out of Tennessee. Now, Liam Doyle, we've talked about it before, very interesting road to get here. Went to Coastal Carolina out of high school, spent a year there, went to Ole Miss, spent a year there, made his way to Tennessee, found the right fit, and was about as dominant as he's ever been in his life at a very high level in the SEC, throwing his fastball 65% of the time. So what's hard about that is we don't generally rate his off-speed very high. He has a very nice splitter. It's gross. But we don't rate his slider very high. We don't rate the splitter as high as we probably could because he just didn't throw it a lot. He was throwing 98 to 99 with his fastball, and he was throwing it wherever he wanted. He had ridiculous ride at the bottom of the zone and just dotted up on the corners, and he had ridiculous ride at the top of the zone getting swings and misses. I like to say that I think his floor is Josh Hader, a really good 2-pitch closer who starts out as a starter, starts to morph into that guy who throws hard enough, gets quick outs, and works into the back of the bullpen. I don't think that'd be a bad thing for the Cardinals considering the wealth of starting pitching that they have within their organization right now, and that is available for them to go purchase from somewhere else whenever they need it. Ryan, among the left-handed pitchers in the draft, did you have him higher than Jamie Arnold, or did you have him lower, and do you think this is an interesting pick by the Cardinals?
So we as a group had him lower than Jamie Arnold, and I don't necessarily think that's completely wrong. I think the main reason, though, is overall pitchability. I think to Liam Doyle's credit, like you brought up, he didn't have to use his secondary stuff a ton to be successful at Tennessee this year. So there is a level to which maybe we don't necessarily know how well the other stuff plays because Doyle was just good enough to move the fastball around and beat guys. Now, a couple interesting things about Doyle is there's only a handful of guys at the major league level who actually release the ball at a higher slot than him. So his slot is a little bit interesting, and I do think that's something that's being taken into consideration here that even we haven't talked about a lot. So where he releases it has something to do with the way it looks. But additionally to that fact, I look at Doyle as it's unknown pitchability with 2, 3, and 4. I believe that the Cardinals organization is a great place for him to be because I think that we're going to get to see more mix and we're going to truly get to see if Arnold has more than just really a fastball splitter combo. If it is only fastball splitter 100%, he slots in as a great back-end bullpen arm. I have a feeling that there's probably a little bit more with the other pitches because it's hard for me to believe you take a guy at 5 that you think there's a higher likelihood he ends up outside of your rotation. Going to be really fun to see what the Cardinals do here, simply because Doyle is absolutely electric.
I'm not going to say it's happening. Obviously, I know nothing. But the St. Louis Cardinals are a game and a half out of the wild card. I'm not opposed to the potential that because of that unique arm slot, and when you get down to a potential playoff scenario, that we end up in a Brandon Finnegan situation as we did with the Royals when he pitched in 2014 in the World Series. Right? Like, if a guy is unique enough, he's throwing 99, and he's pumping in the zone, like, he's doing everything you'd want one of your other bullpen guys to do, and you kind of almost ride the high that he's living on of feeling that he is the best out there and the best man for the job in any situation, and you just say, hey man, they know nothing about you. Just go do your thing and let them try and hit it because they probably won't. Right? Like, That's not That's not to say that turns him into a reliever forever. I mean, Jackson Jobe did it last year, then came out this year and was a starter. It's just to say, like, there's a realistic possibility that there was some thought here of, like, the project of what we can turn this guy into is a very high ceiling, and the floor is, like, could help us in 4 months. I don't think that's crazy.
I totally agree with you. If Doyle is the first guy in this class to put on an MLB uniform, it will not be a shocking thing.
No.
And we've seen guys similar to the Job situation, it's Brandon Finnegan's situation, where this is what it was, right? The whole point was that they were still going to come out and be a starter later on, but you can help us now, and here's how we're going to do it.
Yep. Now, I want to move on to pick number 6. And the guy who I think we were sitting here on the live, if you go back to it, I think on the live, we were sitting here thinking this was actually the direction that the Cardinals were going to go. But the Pirates, to their credit, made a very good decision here. I like to say I don't think the Pirates develop hitters very well. I think Connor Griffin always had it in him, and he's just kind of been now given the space with the frame and the body that he has to be successful. But the Pirates went with Seth Hernandez, right-handed pitcher out of Corona High School in Corona, California. And Seth Hernandez, we've said this over and over again, is one of the most polished right-handed pitchers out there. He has full command of 4 different pitches at a very, very young age. He's 18 years old, already in the mid to upper 90s, 3,000 plus RPM on his curveball at times. I think this is some of the highest upside of any righty we've seen come into the draft, maybe ever, out of high school. I was surprised he didn't go earlier, and I was really surprised he didn't go to the Mariners because it felt more on brand, and because of the arms they already have, it felt like more of a project to follow up what already exists. The Pirates decided to go for it because he was still on the board, and we were not surprised to basically say the next highest arm on the board is probably the direction they're going to go once he did not go to the Cardinals. Ryan, really good decision here by the Pirates, right?
I absolutely love it. Again, we are truly talking about in my personal opinion, most polished right-handed high school pitcher we've ever seen come out. Feel for 4 pitches is not something that is generally real for high school pitchers, let alone the fact that he legitimately sits mid-90s.
It's not real for college pitchers.
100%, right? This guy could have been a weekend starter for anybody in any probably college level right now this year. What he's been able to do is unbelievable. Let's put it to everybody like this: Paul Skeens, Seth Hernandez, Bubba Chandler, Jared Jones. Sounds pretty good. Actually sounds like something you might be able to truly compete with over the next X amount of years. Seth Hernandez has the chance to also find his way up the ladder so quickly because of his pitchability. There's no other way to put it. This is a 18-year-old kid who, as a right-handed arm, barring good health, could be up within the next 1.5 to 2 years. His stuff is outstanding. Very excited to see where this pick goes.
Or Seth Hernandez, Bubba Chandler, Jared Jones, and you trade Paul Skeens to actually go get offense.
Listen.
And build a lineup. If you have 3 really good starters and 2 solid starters, and that's your 5 with a good, really actually good offense, you could creep back over that franchise 500 mark, which they fell behind for the first time in a very long time recently. But very good pick by the Pirates. Definitely for a front office that has not done well in the past with first rounders, except for a couple no-brainers. We feel like made a very good pick here. Now, moving on to number 7. Again, one of the guys we felt was one of the steals of the draft. Fell all the way down to 7 was Iva Arquette, shortstop out of Oregon State. Iva Arquette, 6'4", 220. I comp him at a ceiling to Alex Rodriguez. I think he has very easy power, very easy swing. The one knock on him was coming out of the Pacific Northwest, and very similar to Bremner, just didn't get the recognition deserved because he just wasn't seen enough. Not in the SEC, not in the ACC, playing all the way up there in the Pacific Northwest. Generally, this is what happens. Unless you put up ridiculous numbers like Adley Rutschman did in his junior year, you just don't get seen that high. So for him to work his way all the way up the board the way he did this year was already incredible. And then falling a few slots back down to the Marlins, I love this pick for them. I think this is absolutely a guy that could be plug and play in the next couple of years if he just continues on the trajectory that he's on. He's got the build and the frame and the easy pop to already project well in a big league ballpark, project well with wooden bats. I'm a big fan. Now, when you look at the Marlins and the way that they sit in their organization right now with a guy like Arquette, does he fit at the shortstop position for you, or do you think there's a little bit of mobility he's going to have to make to break in?
I don't think there's going to be much to it at the end of the day, right? Because I think Arquette is going to do the thing that he's always done, and that's hit. There's a possibility that he may have to play third. I have a feeling that it would be a different move over to second. I probably would expect that to be Xavier Edwards moving over to second if they
Yeah, I don't think I'd put 6'4", 220 at second base.
Right, which is where I'm going with it. So I agree with you. I think that's got to be a left side of the infield type of guy. He has the athleticism and ability to stay on the left side of the infield. I don't expect this to be a move to first base. Not that it couldn't be, if that's truly what the Marlins wanted it to be. At the end of the day, Arquette's floor to me is Andrelton Simmons with more pop, maybe 20-plus home run consistency. That says a lot, right? He comes from a long line of Oregon State Beavers who have been excellent throughout time, right? We just saw Travis Bazana have a very, very huge season, which led him to being a number 1 overall pick. Iva is no short of any of some of these guys we've talked about for the career that he had at Oregon State, and I'm really excited to see what he does at the next level, simply because the body type is something, again, you can truly dream on, and the Marlins got that at 7.
Yeah, when you look at their organization, they've got Ethan Salas' brother, Andrew, who's young. He's 17 years old, the international guy. But they're doing a good job of stocking athletes. And I like what Peter Bendix is doing from the standpoint of reshaping and reforming the way this organization builds a prospect pipeline, builds players within the organization. If you look at their draft on the whole from tonight, they also picked up Cam Canarella, which I'm so excited about. Brandon Compton, Max Williams, they're going for college guys. They're going for guys that can start to make a difference in the here and now, because they need to build up a pipeline of guys that can start to show out actual good baseball pretty early. Then you can go get the high school guys next year and the year after if you can build up a solid group in the minor leagues. Seems like they're doing it the right way. I love Arquette kind of starting that off, but very good defenders, very good bats for them, at least on day one. Moving on to the Blue Jays now. And the Blue Jays took somebody that you and I were kind of shocked by. We definitely didn't have him as high. JoJo Parker, shortstop out of Purvis, Mississippi, 6'2", 200-pound, 18-year-old. It's a very smooth left-handed swing. Very, very smooth. Tons of raw power. Big body. I don't necessarily see him staying at shortstop at the next level, but he's got a really good arm. I could easily see him moving over to third base and just kind of being a hitter for a very long time.
Yeah, I mean, look, Parker is another guy. The ceiling is extremely high, right? Whenever we talk about these prep shortstops, the only thing people are going to talk to you about is ceiling. It's just what it is. Most prep players, floors, we don't talk about. And there's just a reason, because the floor is normally lower than anybody wants to admit. Now, what do we like about Parker? This guy, top end, the swing reminds us a lot of Jock Peterson. He's a guy with a ton of pop. When he puts the ball in play, he puts the ball in play extremely hard. The only negative that we had is we felt like his swing was a little bit long at the current moment. However, once he's at the big league level and he has a big league training program, big league coaches around him, a lot of those things could change. Also, there's some guys that just have elite contact skill, and the length of the swing doesn't end up mattering for them because of that. Parker could be one of those guys. I love the upside here for the Blue Jays at the end of the day, right? If you're going to go after a prep shortstop and you're going to take him 8th overall, you got to do it with your chest, and you got to sit there and say, this is our guy. They're losing Bo Bichette this year to free agency, so another bopper that potentially is up the middle I think is really important for them to grab.
Moving on now to number 9, Cincinnati Reds also took a prep shortstop. Steele Hall, 17-year-old, 6 feet, 180. This was probably the shock of the first round, with him going as high as he did. I thought that... No, go ahead. I want to hear your thoughts.
I think that maybe it shocked us more than it shocked other people. We had Hall a little bit lower. He's one of the youngest players in the draft, reclassified from the 2026 class back into the 2025 class. Plus speed, potential plus defender at short, very smooth movements across the board. The biggest thing here is we're talking about the hit tool. It's really hard at number 9 to question somebody's overall hit tool, but at the same time, again, we're going to sit here and talk about ceilings for prep shortstops. The biggest comp on him was Trey Turner. The electric speed, very good defense, a guy who could potentially play you some center field or up the middle of the field, as we like to say, on a regular basis. And if the bat continues to develop from a young guy, that's what we could see out of him. Right now, though, the bat in BP, the swing is a little bit shorter in BP, and in the game it's a little bit longer. So there's a lot to be had here and a lot to be developed, but Hall's got a high upside.
I mean, the likelihood is he's probably still 7 to 8 years away from his physical prime. So the likelihood is that he's going to gain pop. Trey Turner has got to a point where he gained pop as he got bigger, stronger, as his body got faster, as he got older. I do see that potential for Steele Hall and the guy we're going to talk about next, but it's so hard for me to feel comfortable taking a guy like that within the top 10. And that's how I'll always feel. You can always be end of the scale on speed and glove and arm, but if you're not a guy who's going to deliver... Corbin Carroll is a great example of this for me. Corbin Carroll was a guy out of the Pacific Northwest who graded a little bit higher in some of those hit metrics with that speed tool and with that defense tool at a smaller size than these guys are. And that's what's really hard for me with how high these guys are getting drafted.
I think the way that I would put it, and I totally understand, and it's a level of risk aversion that you have comparatively, but it does make sense to me, right? And the reason why is because as a major league team, especially with these picks in the top 10 and the lottery system that now is used, you only get so many of these shots this high in the draft. So it's where are you as an organization, and do you think you could take this risk? I love this risk for the Reds because I see where their organization is right now at the major league level and within their farm system, and I think they can take this shot right now. I think they're stacked enough and they've got a group that allows you to take this shot. I don't know that every team would have been able to do this at 9 and me feel that way.
Okay, then let's talk about 10 because number 10 was the Chicago White Sox. The Chicago White Sox made a very, very, very similar pick in Billy Carlson. Again, 6'1", 180, 18 years old, another prep shortstop. Do you think the White Sox organization was in the same position as the Reds organization to take the same risk?
I feel differently with the White Sox organization from a standpoint of I don't think there's anything wrong with taking a prep shortstop. I simply have seen an organization that they seem like they're getting much, much better within player development over the recent year and a half, and I think we can both agree with the way they've handled players.
For sure.
So do I think they are building an organization that can develop somebody like Billy Carlson? Absolutely. My portion of this, though, is I don't know that they're there yet, and I think that there was guys who had a better bat tool at the current moment that maybe could have gone at this pick, right? I think Carlson looks and walks the walk right now of a guy who's picked in the top 10. I also think there's a lot of risk, again, similar to Steele Hall, that comes with a guy that is glove, speed, and athleticism first.
And that's my struggle is if you're telling me that a guy like Steele Hall or a guy like Billy Carlson, when you grade him and when you see his future, is a guy who's going to be a 270 hitter with 15 bombs a year and play a solid shortstop, I think to myself, great, that's a really solid 10 to 15 year big leaguer. Do I think that's a top 10 pick? No. That's not the numbers I want to see out of the number 10 overall pick. I want to see 25 bombs a year at minimum at 260 a year, and I'd be happy. Like, I want a guy who's going to do damage while playing good defense, not a guy who's going to get on base playing good defense. Not saying I don't want that guy on my team or don't want that guy in my organization. I would rather pick that guy a little bit later where I think he should be getting picked. And I think that's really just the hill I die on is it's not that I think the kid is bad at baseball. It's very clear he's not bad at baseball. It's being more it's knowing what your expectations are of what a top 10 pick is going to be for you in the future. And if you don't see the upside with this guy being that, then he's not a top 10 pick for you. And maybe that is how the White Sox feel, and the way that they grade him and the way that they view him is that he is going to be that. I just don't personally see that. But that's okay.
And listen, we had him lower on our big board than most other people. Again, Carlson, good overall ball player and has the potential and prospects to be a number 10 pick in the eyes of the White Sox for sure. Otherwise, I don't think they take him.
Yep.
Either way, Carlson, we'll see what happens. It's going to be very interesting. Those two back-to-back picks were the prep shortstops with very high ceilings and very low potential floors. So the gamble and the risk has been taken, and we're going to see what happens.
I do think right before the Steele Hall pick, because we thought it was going to be a different prep shortstop, Jackson said, I think you're going to see a bunch of prep shortstops come off the board here. So good call on that one. Moving on to number 11, the Athletics took Jamie Arnold, left-handed pitcher out of Florida State. We thought he was going to go a little higher, fell all the way to 11. The Athletics have absolutely killed the draft the last 3 years, by the way.
Yeah,
Nick Kurtz, Jacob Wilson, Tommy White, Jamie Arnold, among others.
They're doing it again this year too. For anybody who is curious, and we'll obviously start with Jamie Arnold. This is a guy who we ranked number 5 on our big board, if I remember correctly. This guy is one of the most polished college pitchers in the entire draft. He throws 3 different elite pitches. A changeup that absolutely disappears arm side for him, a slider that is an absolute frisbee, and all of this comes from the quote-unquote Chris Sale arm slot. He can ramp it up mid-90s, no issue. I love what I see in Arnold from an overall standpoint. This is another guy who in a very positive situation should be able to work his way to the big league level relatively quickly and continue to bolster this young Athletics roster and lineup. These guys are going to be really good soon, and if you haven't noticed it already, you should probably start paying attention to what's going on out there in Sacramento. Before I finish this little part, I do want to bring up too, they took with the 48th pick Devin Taylor out of the University of Indiana, who low-key was like the best friggin' hitter in the Big Ten and raked in the Cape Cod League. Again, the Athletics just quietly nailing drafts. I love it.
Devin Taylor had 655 at-bats at Indiana University over 3 years. Devin Taylor hit 350, slugged 672, and posted a 459 OBP in 655 at-bats. I don't care what league you play in. He also popped 54 bombs, walked more than he struck out in the midst of that, got hit by 12 pitches, and stole 18 bases. Like, he's a dude. Like, a really, really, really good second-round pick for them. Really big first draft day for the A's. Moving on to number 12, the Texas Rangers and Chris Young took Gavin Fein. Gavin Fein, third base shortstop out of Great Oaks, California. 18 years old, 6'3", 200 pounds. There is a lot to like about this kid. Really, really good swing, very compact, a lot of power. I likened him to Michael Kadire. Michael Kadire, one of the better hitters this league has seen. Just the ability to deliver the barrel to the ball out front and generate a lot of pop at a very young age. I'm very excited about this pick for the Rangers. I think it fits well into their model. I think they have a lot of guys and have taken a lot of guys who have the ability to move around the diamond but slot really well as a corner infielder with a lot of pop.
He's got a very fluid and smooth right-handed swing. The barrel stays in the zone forever. He really throws the bat head at the baseball. Absolutely love this. Also, we're talking about an 18-year-old who's listed at 6'3", 200 pounds.
Man,
Again, that is body and size to dream on here. I think the Rangers potentially got an absolute steal. Another team who is looking to add a true, legit, high-ceiling bopper. This is a guy who, though he is listed as a shortstop, we expect to end up slotting over at third base, but doesn't do anything really poorly on a baseball field. He runs well, he throws well, he fields well, he can hit for average, and he's got a lot of pop in there as well, which will continue to develop. I think Fiend is an excellent pick for the Texas Rangers. I think they got a guy that they can really potentially develop here.
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised how quickly he came off the board as far as just prep shortstops comparatively to who else was out there after Willits and Holiday. JoJo Parker, Steele Hall, Billy Carlson all going in front of him, but still, other guys like Daniel Pierce were out there, Case and Cunningham, like guys that we maybe had a hair higher than him, but he's got just really good tools. So I think it was a good pick. Moving on to number 13, lucky number 13, was Buster Posey's first pick in the seat as the president of baseball operations, I think is the official title, for the San Francisco Giants. And he took Gavin Keelan, shortstop out of University of Tennessee, 21 years old, 5'11", 185. He's got a very short, compact swing. He was at Louisville, transferred into Tennessee, and the biggest thing that Tony Vitello said was he was an aggressive hitter, but maybe a little bit too aggressive. They were able to get him to be a little bit more selective at the dish, found ways to be a little bit better to contact, and it turned into a little bit more power. I think if he can continue to trend that direction, it could be a really, really solid pick for the Giants. I likened him when we were watching it to a Joe Panic, like a guy who didn't come in with necessarily the expectation of power, but has the power upside, but for all intents and purposes is just going to be a very solid second baseman for you for a while. He feels like the kind of guy who's just a very quiet leader, can come to the ballpark every day, do what he's supposed to do, be a pro's pro, and just be the guy that can be in that space and follow that cultural movement that Posey's bringing to the table.
Yeah, and when you see him swing, there's a lot of Gavin Lux in there, which is not at all a bad comp. I like where that comes from. A guy who, again, delivers the barrel very, very well. There's a lot of whip in that swing that can generate backspin on a regular basis. He's got great bat-to-ball skills. So we'll see what happens with Keelan. It was an interesting pick simply because I felt like there was some other guys that we had a little bit higher that Posey might go with. But what Buster Posey has proven to everybody in his short tenure with the Giants is that they are going to make very clear and firm decisions, and they don't look back against those decisions. So if he thinks Keelan is the guy, it's hard for me not to believe he isn't.
Yep, I couldn't agree more. I mean, until we see the results of what Buster Posey is putting together, it's hard to judge. But I like the thought process that he's bringing to the table. Only had 2 picks on day one. We will talk about his other one. Moving on to number 14, the Tampa Bay Rays, who I really think had a very, very solid draft on the whole. Took Daniel Pierce, another prep shortstop out of Mill Creek, Georgia, 18 years old, 6 feet, 185. Pierce, as we were watching it, was like, he was my pick for the Rays as they were on the clock. It felt like a slam dunk. Like, it felt like the right move. There were only so many other prep shortstops at the high on the board, considering the state of their organization. Going and getting shortstops felt like a need. Going and getting one that files into the correct timeline with the Ha-Seong Kim signing this offseason feels like it made sense. He's a good shortstop. He's athletic. He's quick. His feet and his footwork, both at the dish and at shortstop, show me a lot of confidence and show me a lot of comfort. I think that's really important from a high school guy, not feeling like he's rushing his body to be able to do more than it can. It seems that he's very comfortable in what his body can do, and he does it really well.
100%. And this felt like a classic Tampa Bay Rays taking the best player on the board. No real questions asked, right? They knew that Daniel Pierce was an excellent athlete with a very good swing. On the broadcast, they likened his overall swing to Bobby Witt Jr. He's a guy that has a very, very strong front side when he swings, which I think allows him to get even more power out of his 6-foot frame. Again, 18 years old, not nearly at the maturity of his strength and pop that he'll have. Love the swing, really like the glove, think he could stay at short. I also think he could probably play quite a few other positions around the diamond, so it'll be interesting to see what the Rays do with him.
Yeah, he does that move with the back foot coming up off the ground like Bobby Witt does. I saw it it was like the first video we watched, and Jackson was like, that's an interesting swing, and I was like, nope, that's Bobby Witt Jr. So I'm glad that it got called out on TV today, too.
Yeah, Bobby Witt Jr. there, and the other one that I remember always from the left side is Bryce Harper. Was so exaggerated. It was always impressive.
Yeah, it's funny when guys are younger and they learn. Not a golf podcast, but I am going to say this. It's very funny. You can always tell who grew up small on a golf course versus who grew up big, because the guys who grow up small have this big slinging draw. Because you learn when you're younger, if I can get the ball to do that, I can get an extra 15 yards. You can tell that these are guys who grew up and were hitting home runs from a very young age because they learned from a very young age how to get the backside of their swing through the baseball. And then as they got stronger, that effort propelled the foot off the ground. Right? Bobby Witt, not a huge guy, but learned how to find that power very early on, and now that's just what he does. I'm not going to say Bryce Harper was small, because he wasn't small. But Bryce Harper figured out how to use that backside, get it through, and hit the ball 500 feet. It was a different scenario. He didn't need to hit it that far, but he wanted to hit it that far. But
that's what happens when you swing rebar every day.
that momentum just carries your back foot through. Moving on to number 15, the Red Sox took what we thought was one of the better right-handed arms out of college off the board in Kyson Witherspoon. Kyson Witherspoon was a lot of fun to watch this season out of Oklahoma. 20 years old, 6'2", 206 pounds. And what he does the best is he hides the baseball. The other night I was texting these guys that it almost looks a little bit like Dylan Cease, where he kind of holds the ball really tight to his shoulder, and then you think it's kind of short-armed, but when you slow it down, he really does get a good long lever in there, and it creates the ability to mix a lot of different pitches because he still has a traditional release point, but he can throw a lot of things out of a very similar slot and throw things out of a very similar tunnel with not much move or not much change in the way he grips the baseball, and it just opens up a world of opportunity. I really like this pick for the Red Sox, and I said this when we were on the live. I think this is Craig Breslow picking what he knows. Craig Breslow knows pitching. He knows what pitchers he likes. He knows what he can feel comfortable understanding from a development perspective. Him taking a right-handed pitcher right out of the gate is the least shocking thing that happened in the first 15 picks.
Yeah, I love this pick. I think it really fits. Again, you mentioned a little bit about the fact that he does have a short to long lever. I think that what I consider a little bit more of the short arm type throw reminds me of a Shane Bieber. It reminds me of a Lucas Giolito. It's less aggressive than Cutter Crawford's short arm type throw. However, the Red Sox have 3 guys in their rotation that have a little bit of a shorter arm slot who all hide the ball. This is something that they're used to developing and used to working with. In Kyson Cunningham's stuff is excellent. His pitchability is great. Oh my gosh.
Listen.
Kyson Witherspoon. I apologize.
I'm shocked we have not done that more.
Well, it was always gonna be me. So
yeah.
All right. Kyson Witherspoon's 4-pitch mix is excellent. He has feel for all of those pitches, the ability to hide the ball and then release 4 different pitches out of the exact same slot is always going to help with overall pitchability. Yep. And again, it's not like his fastball's low 90s. He's sitting mid to upper 90s on a regular basis. Great arm for the Red Sox. I think the upside here is very, very high.
And just so everybody knows, Craig Breslow, of his first 4 picks, 3 of which were large right-handed pitchers out of college. So something he feels like he can handle. Something that makes sense. The other one was Henry Godbout out of Virginia, a shortstop. But again, large right-hander, so still falls within that range. So there you have it. Our thoughts on the first 15 picks of round 1 in the 2025 MLB draft. This was like Christmas for us, guys. We were so excited coming into this, or Hanukkah, depending on who you are. But we were so excited coming into this. It was everything we could have imagined and then more. I mean, the first 2 picks just got us off and running with absolute shockers. Then a nice storybook pick here and there. Some guys moving up and down. But we'll throw something out there, a nice tweet out there for our favorite pick, our biggest steal, and one that we just absolutely loved out of nowhere. And that's what we have for you now, which is our most interesting pick outside the top 15 from day one. And Ryan, this was a guy for you that we talked about a bunch, and I thought for sure he was almost going to go a little bit higher. But tell me why you love this pick so much.
Yeah, and I already mentioned it a little bit when we got into the Rockies portion of this with Ethan Holiday, but Max Ballou, who was rated by MLB.com at 34th overall, and we had him rated in our top 30, I was shocked to see this sweet swinging lefty fall all the way to 74. There is a ton of pop in this bat to all sides of the field. He plays a very solid outfield. I cannot wait to watch this guy hit multiple home runs in Colorado. I mean, we're going to get to see him right down the street in Coors because he rakes.
Remember, episode 1 of our podcast when we were really excited about the potential of Gavin Sheets being out there for the taking and the Rockies taking Gavin Sheets and letting him hit fly balls in Coors Field? Yeah, that's Max Ballou, and I'm pretty excited for that to potentially happen in the near future.
I love that comparison, and I think Ballou, even to his credit, is a slightly better outfielder. Slightly.
Yes, I would agree with that. My most interesting pick from day one, Buster Posey had 2 picks today. He did not have a second-round pick because of the signing of Willy Adames, who had gotten a qualifying offer. His third-round pick, he took Trevor Cohen, a left-handed outfielder out of Rutgers University in New Jersey. This kid hit .387 this year, slugged .523, a .460 OBP, 91 hits in 235 at-bats. He was a doubles machine, which is telling me that Buster Posey loves the idea of having a really solid defensive outfielder who could just pound balls pull side into triples alley and just be an absolute doubles and triples merchant in Oracle Park. Very fascinating pick. This kid has no draft ranking, no information on the draft board on MLB.com, which means he would have been past ranking, 250? I think is how far they...
250.
Yeah, is how far they go. What a move. What a move by Posey and whoever is scouting players for him up in the Northeast to really dig into this kid and figure out that the potential for what he could be in the very near future for that team, considering they've got Elliot Ramos, Jung-Hoo Lee, and Mike Yastrzemski on solid contracts, and to basically say like, yeah, but you never know how much you need, and this kid could turn into something, and he's got an aptitude for finding the barrel of the bat and the gaps of the outfield. I am in love with this pick.
Yeah, and listen, part of it could be too that they need to find a way to make sure that they have enough money for whatever's going on later on in this draft, right? With between him and Keelan, you take a guy like Trevor Cohen who fits the San Francisco Giants organization specifically, maybe better than anywhere else in baseball. And now we may see them tomorrow, second day of the draft, really go after some guys that maybe you didn't expect were going to be available to them. So it's going to be really fun to see what happens here between the first two picks that Posey made. Again, all of this screams Buster Posey, or what we've seen so far. Walks in, signs Willy Adames. Walks in, trades for Rafael Devers. No questions. There's no... Every interview he's in, we're here to bring the Giants back to the way they were when I played for them. This is Buster Posey and his group putting their hand down and saying, we know this is the right guy, and we have a plan, and we're here to execute.
Yep. And as always, Buster, open invite, join us on the pod, and talk about all this stuff, because we're very curious about your transition into the front office, and we love it. So we're not going to have any final thoughts today. We're going to use those most interesting picks to finish things off. But as always, like, comment, subscribe. Thank you for joining us, and have a great week.